I have not seen a single rail worker put forward better retirement and more pay. I've just never seen that.
Right.
And I feel
the work-life balance seems to be so much bigger.
We got a comment, direct message on Twitter, and you can, with like the best place probably, if you want to make sure to get your comment answered on the show, the best place is probably going to be texting the show, 844-899-8857. But I do try to keep a check on all of our various social media accounts, and so, I'll probably see it, but that's the best if you want us to answer the thing on the show. But we got this in a DM from Twitter. Dear TVLR crew, first time, long time. Appreciate the long time. At Christmas Eve dinner with my extended family, I talked a while with my uncle. It's always the uncles. How is that the case? How does that happen? It's always the uncles. He's about 60 and is the happiest, nicest guy you'll meet. He also works in HR at a factory. I often enjoy talking labor news with him because he's always up to date, but usually has an opposing perspective. It sounds like you're kind of like me, like I enjoy arguing. Adam is not that way, I don't think. When I talked with him about the rail strike, I said the company acted in bad faith because they knew Congress would ram it through. He disputed that, saying they might have sided with workers, but I told him to look around and get real. I then opined that the sick day situation was unconscionable. He said that sick days are not as big a deal as most people make of it. He contends that sick days were not a priority for all workers, and their older workers didn't care as much about sick days and voted more for better retirement and pay, while younger workers were interested in time off. He also said the bargaining team was totally unrepresentative of the workforce as a whole. I'd love to hear your or a rail workers guest's perspective on that. In solidarity, Phil from Wisconsin. P.S. We also got hung up on if the majority of workers voted to reject the rail deal. I know a minority of the 12 unions voted down the contract, but I had been under the impression that the largest unions voted against it. Not sure where to find that info. So a few kind of questions there. The first one, I'll hit the last first, and that is the case that the majority of workers, unions representing the majority of workers, voted down the deal. It was only 4 of the 12 unions, but those were the largest unions, and they made up a majority, more than 50% of workers on the rails. Of the 115,000 workers on the rails, unions representing the majority of them voted it down. So even though, and that's why, right, that the Biden administration did not say in their statement about we're going to do, we're going to ram this down their throats. We're going to ram this down their throats. He said a majority of the unions have ratified the deal already. He did not say a majority of the workers or unions representing a majority of the workers because he couldn't say that. But that would sound better, right? If you got a majority of the workers on your side, wow, that sounds better. But he didn't. That's why he didn't say that. Your uncle said that Congress might have sided with the workers. And I don't know. You told him to look around and get real, and it's like I don't know what else you can say.
Right. Yeah. I mean, obviously there was an attempt by Bernie and a handful of others, but we see where that went.
Yeah, and that's never happened in the history of the Railway Labor Act.
Right.
For
yeah. I mean,
130 years, this thing has been the law, and never, ever, ever has Congress and the president sided on, been with the rail workers.
Right.
So.
So yeah, it was. You can look at the state of things now. You can look at the historical precedent. We all knew pretty clearly that if it was in the hands of Congress, it wasn't going to turn out well for the workers.
At least,
I do appreciate those who fought the good fight.
Right.
That very small handful of those who did that. But
yeah, the thing is, I mean, like it's possible, but the preponderance of evidence would have suggested to you that was not the case. And if you're the railroads bargaining committee, the worst case scenario is that you go out 3 years and maybe they side with the workers and only give them 7 days of paid sick leave, which this is something to tell your uncle. Warren Buffett made enough money in one day to pay for 15 sick days for all 115,000 rail workers in a year. Right. So that's like, the wealth disparity here is just ridiculous. Warren
Right.
Buffett,
So if you're going to say it's not really a big deal to the workers, well, it's really not a big deal to the company.
right.
If we're being honest about it.
Yeah. So, the is it likely? It's not likely that Congress was going to side with them, but even if they did, the unions were asking for such a little bit that it's like, well, it's better doing this now than having done it 3 years ago when they began bargaining, right? He said that sick days are not as big a deal as people make of it, and I don't know where it's difficult to, all of the reporting that I've seen on it. People actually talking to rank and file rail workers, Jonah Furman, Mel Buer, Max Alvarez, all these people, Josh Idelson. Sick days has been the thing, right? And sick days has been the thing that has been put forward as the representation of these rail workers losing their lives to the rails more broadly. But that's always been I've never seen any of them. I have not seen a single rail worker put forward better retirement and more pay as their primary reason for voting down the contract. I've just never seen that.
Right.
And I feel
the work-life balance seems to be so much bigger.
Which is not to say that they don't deserve better pay or better retirement. Obviously, I think they do, right? I wouldn't be opposed to that. But I feel like compared to like a normal person or whatever, I feel like I've been following this pretty regularly. I've literally not seen it once. So I don't know where your uncle would be getting that. I don't know where he would be getting that. Seems like work-life balance is the thing that all these people, and I have seen on the flip side, I've seen young workers talk about the work-life balance, talk about the sick days. I've seen old workers. I've seen people that have retired from the rails that are still active in their unions talking about the work-life balance, talking about the sick days. So like that really, really, really seems to be the thing. And I don't know how to convince him of that other than to say that I've just never seen what he contends. He said the bargaining team was unrepresentative of the workers as a whole. Potentially. I don't know every single person on the bargaining team. I do know that is an issue in some cases. But
to the extent that it's an issue, it's often an issue for those of us who are on the left inside these unions, as opposed to like the HR people on the outside, on the other side of the table. Yeah. Right. The other side of the table is not all that concerned about how representative the bargaining team is. Right. They just want to be able to get one up on the bargaining team. Right.
Yeah. So I don't know all the people on the bargaining team, but yeah, it's an issue.
I can't speak to how much of an issue it was in this particular case. Right. I can say that it's not a coincidence that the longtime incumbent of the BLET was voted out as a result of this fiasco. And so there could be concerns about the representation that they were receiving. It rings a little hollow coming from someone who works in HR in a factory setting. I mean, yeah, because again, your uncle, as you said, very nice person, happy person, but the position he occupies shapes his perspective.
Right. But also, it's whether or not the bargaining team is representative seems to me to be immaterial to what the issues were and how agitated the workforce was. Now, on our side,
if BLET itself had some particular flaws in how they were handling things, or there's beef with headquarters or whatever, okay, I mean, that's all cool to talk about and dissect. Right. Doesn't change the fact that railroad workers deserve sick leave, because everybody in the year 2022 deserves sick leave. Right. Or it doesn't change the fact that Democrats could have done so much more to help working people, and they chose not to. Yeah. So I agree with you. Yeah, I think you can get in the weeds there, but it doesn't really get at the heart of the matter.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that a more representative bargaining committee would have done is probably would have been pushing for more. It's probably would have been pushing for more sick leave, for more time off, and more.
If anything, it appeared. Yeah, I would imagine so. It would have been a more militant bargaining team. Yeah. I would say the rank and file were probably, out there a little bit more militant than the leadership was. That's certainly fair to say.
Yeah. So yeah, Phil from Wisconsin. Those are our
appreciate the comment. Yeah, and I'd shared with you some stuff. I had conversations with family and stuff about the railroads and how amazing it was, the power of mainstream media. Because once that deal was signed and Joe Biden and the Democrats made their press tour announcing how they had saved the country from the brink of disaster. I have a family member who had been watching our coverage and listening to our coverage, listening to rail workers themselves, and was right on line with us. But then once they caught wind of, once that blitz on CNN and MSNBC and CNBC and Bloomberg, after a 2-day cycle of that, it was like everything we had talked about had just disappeared and had been washed away by the propaganda.
Yeah.
And boy, that was very frustrating.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think a lot of us deal with in our lives when we talk with friends and family is the power of media to shape people and the exposure to what people do and don't know. I mean, like you were mentioning with this guy's uncle, I don't know where he got some of that, but it wasn't from actual real journalism occurring on the subject.
Yeah, I wouldn't seem to be. So
yeah, I mean that's part of it too is the media diets of people and how that impacts folks, because boy, that was just driving me insane.
Yeah,
seeing how quickly that switched with people once the media put out that press for a couple days.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.